What is that sound I keep hearing behind me? Oh, I'm dragging a child's kite. How long have I been dragging that for? And why didn't any of these nice people tell me?
This song hits home for me. You see a lot of violence outside and you get used to it after a while.
For the past 4 weeks, we have been teaching the kids about telling their own story. You know, they listen to music all the time and they don't recognize that a lot of these artists and stuff like that they're really just telling their own story through lyrical pieces.
Our goal each and every day is to get every single young king to tap into his ability and his voice, to constantly allow them to, feel more comfortable even in those spaces that might not be as safe, but to be brave and to speak up for those things that they know they need to vocalize.
So I really want them to find their internal value, find things that they're passionate about through this program.
And that's what MBK is all about, is we come together and we're trying to just help coach them along through their processes to make sure that partnerships like this and others, that they'll be safe enough to be able to say, oh, I can do something that I've never done before.
What do you know about Dog Walker Watch?
I think it's a great program where dog walkers like me who are out and about in their neighborhood every day. They're the eyes and ears of the neighborhood, providing an extra set of eyes to the police. If you see something, say something.
It absolutely makes a difference because it will weed out the crime because they know that we're saying hello and greeting and that we've made eye contact and that I see you.
It's easy. You're going to walk your dog anyway. You're going to say hello to your neighbors anyway. You're going to be walking through on a daily basis, so it's just important to contribute back to your community.
Well, how I got involved, Randolph from Englewood Neighborhood Center, which is the neighborhood center that I grew up in. I just love the idea because growing up at the shop that I grew up in, they gave me an opportunity, so why not give back?
I always loved art, like in any type of form. If it's drawing, tattoo, graffiti, haircuts, anything. So once I turned 16, I got involved with the program. Since then, I've been working here at the barbershop and learning new things.
He comes in, he helps out with a lot of just, you know, the basics from sweeping hair to standing behind somebody's chair asking questions. And I think him seeing my actions and the way I move and how everything functions, I think he picks up on a lot of that as well. But
the thing that I learned so far is the more customers you can gain in the barber industry it's not just by cutting hair and like cutting good. That's not what barbering is all about. It's also having a connection with your clients and understanding them. And they were just teaching us how to manage our money, save it, and just use it properly in the proper way.
From business owner to business owner, if we can help and the more people get involved, the better the chances are that these young men growing up and young women growing up, you know, they can change their life.
I want to be a barber, and I also want to have my own business in the barber industry as well.
All right, good morning, Commissioners, and welcome to the workshop of the Orlando City Council for February the 5th, 2024. So, Commissioners, we continue to see tremendous growth in our community, and I don't think that's going to subside anytime soon. Additionally, in 2022, we saw unprecedented rainfall and historic flooding with Hurricane Ian, and these types of storm events, I think, are becoming more frequent for us, and we know the growth is going to continue, so that puts a significant demand on our stormwater infrastructure, and it's been a while since we talked about that, so I thought it would be important that we talk about maintaining those operations and planning for future needs. So our Public Works Department, Streets and Stormwater Division are in charge of that, and Corey is going to update us on that. Corey Knight, our Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Commissioners. I come before you today to talk about our stormwater rate evaluation that we have been undergoing here for a while. I've got a presentation to show you, so we're going to pull that up. And we're going to talk a little bit about our stormwater utility rate. So our stormwater utility rate, which is assessed for maintenance and operations for stormwater in Orlando here. The last update was 15 years ago, FY 2008, 2009. And so we thought back in 2019 there was a discussion on a need to update that study. So we wanted to update the study based on revenue projections. And so in 2019, we got Raftellus, a consultant, to help us look at those rates and review the rates. And just kind of as a note, currently right now, our stormwater utility rate is at a point where we can no longer cover the projections of what we have. So we're in a point where we need to do something about what we have. And just last year, for this fiscal year 24, we had to take out an internal loan of approximately $17 million and a state revolving fund loan of $6 million just to cover some of our improvements in our operations of what we have. So just as of note. So the other thing that we wanted to look at, and we thought it was worthy to look at, is we really need a system of less complex calculations. There's some discount rates there that are very complex to understand and kind of how they work. And so we wanted to take a look at that as well in this study. So right now, in this study, we wanted to review the current stormwater program. We wanted to identify what our stormwater funding needs are. We also wanted to evaluate our current rate structure, and we wanted to compare those stormwater utility rates and fees with other Florida communities just to make sure that we were still staying on the ball and staying in task with other municipalities. And right now we've got some, the management issues that we have to deal with in our stormwater is our regulatory compliance. We have to work with several regulatory compliances. We work with FEMA for flood studies. We make sure that all that is kept up. We work with St. John's in South Florida, depending upon where we're at. There's some regulatory requirements. They are always kind of on the forefront of looking to maintain better stormwater management, better quality. So we want to keep up with that. We look at flood control and resiliency. You guys are aware that we went through a historic rainfall with the advent of Ian coming through, and we had to deal with that. Another thing that we really want to put on the forefront, and we have done a good job of it here, we want to continue to do a good job, is improving and protecting our water quality in our lakes, not only for recreational use, but for other uses as well. And then, as we're all aware, we've got to renew and replace aging infrastructure that we have around town, around the city. Some of the infrastructure we have currently right now is old, and so we want to make sure that we're staying up with that, we're staying on top of it, so we can provide that good quality of life for our residents of the city of Orlando. We also want to maintain and keep a level of service here, and this is very important to Public Works, to maintain that level of service where our operation and maintenance activities are at a good quality, and that we can stay up with our capital improvement needs of the community. So of our rate study issues, the one thing that we were trying to look at and see what we did is our method of billing. Now this is a non-ad valorem assessment. that is implemented here, meaning it won't be based on property values. It's just an assessment put on the yearly tax. And then we wanted to see our projected revenue requirements and our funding levels, what we need to keep, to maintain that service level that we want. We wanted to evaluate our rate classes and our rate structures. And then we wanted to phase in these rate adjustments. As we know, 15 years ago was quite some time ago. There's been a lot that has changed since then. Inflation, we need to keep up with that. We have not been necessarily keeping up with that, so that's something we wanted to look at. And just to kind of run you through how this revenue is used, we cover this, this revenue is covering our operation and maintenance expenses. It's covering our annual city dividend payment. It's covering the capital improvement program, and that's our debt for our major projects that we have. We have what is pay-as-you-go funding for our annual renewal and our replacement needs. And then we wanted to maintain an adequate reserve in our stormwater fund for these unforeseen, storm events that are happening. They're heavier, they're more frequent. So we wanted to make sure that we were prepared for emergencies and disasters of what we need. So just to kind of put a couple pictures up here, to picture what we actually do with that money. And we have vac trucks that keep our systems clean. We have our vacuums that run and keep the gutters looking good. We have our water quality. We're testing and monitoring this water quality. We're looking at the vegetation in some of our lakes and making sure that vegetation is kept up with. And sometimes we have blooms that happen, and so there's more that we need to do as we go along there. Our gutters, maintaining those, the gutters, the streets, everything we have to do with that. And then got a last picture. This is a picture of Ian taken in the Southeast Lakes area about how much of an impact that one heavy storm can have in an area. This is a few more photos of Ian and just the needs associated with every time we have this. If we don't have those adequate reserves, if we're not prepared for this, it can take us by surprise. Real quickly, a facts at a glance. On an annual basis, our Streets and Stormwater Division maintains water quality in 80 lakes here in the city. We have 84 retention ponds and 86 control ditches that we have to maintain. We manage 50 weir boards and water control structures, and we sweep 81,000. This is an annual sweeping, so a composite total, 81,517 miles of streets. So we sweep a street twice a week, and the total of that per year is 81,000, a little over 81,500. We collect 34,000 cubic yards of debris that's maintained by all stormwater. That's baskets, that's some of our gutters, it's sweeping. 49,000 inlet structures and 548 baskets, 1,060 miles of stormwater pipes, over 4,000 outfall pipes discharging into lakes and ponds. So it's quite a task that the stormwater group does. They do a fantastic job. We want to make sure that they can continue to do that great job as we go on. And as we know, and Mayor, as you've pointed out, we continue to grow as a city, which is great, but we need to keep up with that as our infrastructure ages, and we want to do a good job in maintaining that. So what needs to be done? So we looked at it, and we said we need a couple steps that we need to enact a new rate. And that first step is going to be to update the rate. So years 1 through 4, we would update the rate to get us to a point where we need to be currently right now. We don't want to go in all at once, so we want to make it manageable. And that's going to reduce our funding gap. And then what we want to do next year is commission a new study that's going to look at the modification of the discounts and caps. So there are discounts and caps that are in the rate right now, and we want to look at that and understand it totally before we make any modification to those discounts. And there's some in there that we're not really sure where some of the discounts came from, how they enacted. So there's a little bit more research we need to do on that. We want to come back and understand that too. And hopefully by year 5, we're going to balance our stormwater budget, and we're going to add capital projects in this so we can continue to do what needs to be done. So on the stormwater rate and fee structure considerations, what do we need to do to consider this structure? What is the basis for the stormwater fee structure? There's many questions about that. We need to recover the revenue requirements. We need to look at fairness and equity in that fee. And we also need to have administrative feasibility. So can we actually implement this program based on the dollar amount that we have? And then we have customer classes that we've broken down. We've got single-family residential. We've got a multifamily residential. We've got non-residential and commercial. And then we've got vacant properties too that we have to do. So the one chart that we wanted to point out, and this is a very telling chart that you see here in front of you, is our projected revenue requirements. And you can see in 2024 where we're at right now, we are maxed out. We are at our operating expenses is basically equal to what we're bringing in here. And you can see by 2025 we already fall behind in our total debt service. So meaning we can't even pay what we owe in 2025 if we keep the current rate that we have. And you can see in 2028 the dashed line there is our current rate structure. And if we keep that, we're going to be way far behind by 2028. So you see the revenues at projected rates, which we're going to look at here real quick. Can see that black line will be able to fund the capital fund transfers much better by the time we get to the other side here. So the projected rates revenue I've got in front of you here, and what we base this on and what this graph is for a monthly fee for approximately 2,000 square foot residence. So in 2025, currently right now, the rate is $9.95 per month. So what we're proposing right now is to increase that monthly fee $3.50 to get us up to $13.49 per month. As you can see, we're still going to be behind in our capital funding deficiency, but eventually we make it by 2027 as we increase the fee each year to where we can have some capital reserves built up to where we'll feel a lot better about where we're at and kind of where we're headed there. And we wanted to show here on the existing versus proposed calculations of basically what we're seeing as we kind of break it out between residential, commercial, and then this commercial OSWIM is the Orlando Urban Stormwater Management Manual, and that's where some of the discounts are in based on if commercial properties have their own management systems, stormwater management ponds that they maintain. There's discounts in there. We think we need to keep those, but once again, we want to analyze and see what exactly is built in there to know. So we're going to keep everything as it is right now as far as the discounts and just increase that base fee. So you can see in a 1,000 square foot facility, you're actually going to get a decrease next year. And we decided to remove the lower cap that was on there. So we're going to get a little bit of a benefit for somebody that has smaller residents. They're going to see a cost reduction next year. It will increase the following year, but as far as this year, we're going to see a little bit of a relief in that management. So, and we point back to kind of a 2,000 square foot proposition because that's normal as far as what we look at as far as a residential unit. So our rate comparison, we also wanted to make sure that we wanted to see where all the other communities were, how we stacked up against communities. So we looked at the major areas in Florida here, and you can see we're at 1349. We're in the middle part of this graph. We definitely don't want to be at the top. We don't want to be at the bottom. So we figure we're good there in the middle. We're below Clearwater. We're below Capital now, or below Tampa. Tampa actually has two charges. They bifurcate their charges to where they have a base charge and then they have a capital improvement charge that they see. So you'll see Tampa on this graph twice, just in case you have any questions about that. And then that's it. Do we have any questions, or is there anything that I can answer for y'all?
Okay, thank you, Corey. Corey, could you talk about some of the capital improvements that we need to make? Absolutely, yeah. A lot of the capital improvements we see we're faced with aging infrastructure. That's a predominant amount of what we are. Anytime we go in and do a project that is going to rehabilitate a street, it starts with our infrastructure. And we have a lot of stuff that we want to do. Our streets, sometimes you see some potholes that are accompanied by either wastewater or stormwater joint failures or pipe failures. And so there's a lot of capital projects that we need to do that are a replacement of our current aging infrastructure and stormwater pipes. And so that's predominantly what a lot of our capital improvement projects house right now, are those replacing the current storm system or upgrading
the storm system in there. So maybe it's not big enough in some areas. There's a lot of, the area around here has a lot of smaller pipes, especially in the older neighborhoods, that are not typical of what we need. And so in an afternoon rain shower, we'll get a few puddles that are around some places, and that's pretty much due to a lot of these pipes are either 12 inches, some of them are below 12 inches underneath the roads. And so some of those aspects of those drainage we need to upsize and make sure we're getting adequate flow in our pipes. And that also helps with some of the blockages that we see. Some of the blockages are in the smaller pipes too, and that causes some temporary issues, but nonetheless, those are the kind of capital improvement that we need to make and need to upgrade.
Okay, Commissioner Sheehan, then Commissioner Hill.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Corey, and I agree that stormwater is important. You don't know about it until it doesn't work, or you have a failure like we had over in Lake Davis and Cherokee, and that was during Ian, that was terrible. Flooded a lot of homes in that area, so stormwater is very, very important. One of my concerns is over some of the infill development that's happening in existing neighborhoods. I know that we can't, the planning allows them to build all the way to the envelope. But in some of these areas where, when I've got developers that are buying up on entire blocks like Page Street, there's no existing stormwater inlets. Mm-hmm. So basically you've got modern development taking advantage of an antiquated structure, and the residents are all concerned about flooding, which I agree with them, because we need to catch up in some of these areas where we don't have adequate infrastructure. I mean, I'm frustrated that we didn't make developers put waste, stormwater and sidewalks and all these necessary infrastructure in the 70s. We kind of let people go crazy and said we'll catch up later, and of course it's always a lot more expensive to catch up later. But is there any way to deal with, or perhaps if they're going to go in and work on an entire block like they are on Page Street, make them put the infrastructure in because it's necessary, because they're just going to be conducting a lot more stormwater?
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely something we could look at. Be happy to look at that. And something else too, and this goes back to the kind of the capital, what do we foresee as being the capital? We need to keep up with some of this too, right? We like to see this. We like to see the development, because it means it's a healthy community, right? They're coming in, they're building these houses. There's a couple aspects too of this, Commissioner, that we would like to see. We would like to see residents also develop a low impact development type of mentality, right? Where we're trying to manage some of these through what the actual physical limitations of the site are too. So we encourage the use of bioswales, what we call bioswales on the property, to kind of hold as much of that stormwater as possible before releasing it into it. And really, it's the game about how much, if I increase my impervious area, how much do I need to hold back? Right. And so there's that kind of, there's that, we encourage that. We say there's a lot of, site plans that come in. We say, hey, this needs to happen. We encourage more low impact development. That low impact development is maybe, an installation of a rain garden or something that tries to help, minimize what we have as the outflow. And we're working on some of that aspects as far as our engineering group and stuff. And I know Orange County is working on low impact development, manual and guidelines as far as how we're doing. So we're working together to try to figure out, what to do in those situations. But there are some, probably some areas where we need to look and say, hey, do we need to upsize, the pipes there? Or do we need to go back and see, do we have enough drainage in the area? Because there's several streets that don't have drainage at all, right?
Or charge the developer.
Yeah,
for goodness sake, these developers don't want to pay for any of these costs that they're passing on to us.
Yeah.
And they kind of want to take advantage of the fact that there isn't that they want to go ahead and build all the way to the envelope, and there is not existing stormwater. Why shouldn't they have to kind of, bear their fair share for some of this too? I had a second question on
Sure.
water quality, particularly with the private lift stations. It's actually Commissioner Stewart's district, but I walk Lake Formosa every single day. And I've seen the sewer spills that have happened from a private lift station that have gone into that lake. Now, I've been very upset about it because I used to see otters. I used to see a lot more wildlife, and even though, and they've paid fines which are de minimis compared to the damage that they've done when the lift station fails. But my concern is, even though the parts per billion for the sewage and everything like that may mitigate, after a certain point of time, I've noticed that the lake quality has not come back as quickly. Just because it meets the parts per billion does not mean that the lake quality is as clear as it was prior to that spill. And I know this is state of Florida, and they have very de minimis charges for this lift station problems, but I don't know if there's some way for us to come in and figure out a way when they do these to disincentivize these sewer spills, because I've seen the impact that they've had, and I'm concerned as more and more, developments might want to do private lift stations, and if there's not enough of a disincentive to pollute, I'm just afraid that this could really impact our lake quality on much more than Lake Formosa, where I've seen it. I'm sure it must be happening in other places as well.
Yeah. Well, I'll take a look at it and see what's happening in the area.
Okay, and not
And I know,
I know it's Commissioner Stewart's district, but like I say, I walk by it every single day,
Yeah.
and I've noticed the difference, and I think it's a shame because, like I say, I don't think they should be able to pollute it well.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Yep. Commissioner Hill, then Commissioner Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor, and good morning, and thank you for this workshop, Corey. And Commissioner Sheehan, I like that word, de minimis. That was pretty nice, yeah.
It's a three-syllable word.
Yeah.
Or is it four? I can't count that early.
Where I want to go, I have a few questions, which, as you stated and the Mayor says, and we all know that we don't see anytime soon that growth is going to decrease or halt. So this is much needed, and at the rate we are, haven't been increased in 15 years. And to continue to be the quality of the city, this is needed. And I think your team has been very thoughtful on how we're supposedly going to increase the rate, but then at the end decrease it. Is there going to be any infrastructure dollars from the county to help us with some of these infrastructure capital projects that we're going to need in the future, and to help compensate for some of the funding that we might receive?
Well, we certainly want to partner with the county anytime we can. I mean, we see that in some, depending upon where it's at, in some situations, what we've been doing is we've been actively engaging the county in discussions too about, hey, what makes sense? We're maintaining this, but you're maintaining that. Does it make sense to look and see where each of us are maintaining ditches or lakes, and see who's got the primary responsibility? So there are agreements in place right now, Commissioner. We will certainly continue to, we want to partner with anybody that makes sense, at the time to do what we need to do. We're also going to look for we're going to continue looking for opportunities for funding these either through FEMA, either through, state loans, whatever that is we still want to pursue those. Because it's going to take more than just the rate to adequately address everything. That's not, I'm probably not surprising anybody with that, but we want to take those opportunities to have smart partnerships in these areas to make sure that we're, not only are we managing what we need to be, but water doesn't care where it goes, right? It doesn't see any boundaries. It's going to go wherever the low point is, right? In essence, and so we want to make sure we're working in partnership, with the county and with other areas to see what we need to do. So absolutely, we'll certainly, keep that in mind.
Thank you. And can you briefly, I think it's just phenomenal. I know we've been working on this for about 5 years, and you all have found a way to find some funds for the Harrelson Estate project that we've gone to the community that is on the way. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Those are federal funds that we acquired for that, and that is a tremendous help. And like I said, that's something that we want to pursue those federal funding. This is something we're going to continue to do as we go on. We look for this funding opportunities. We look for partnerships. We try to make those partnerships and try to capitalize both sides on these partnerships, right? FEMA says, hey, we have this for you. We want to see this happen. We certainly want to be at the forefront to try to get those jobs in, and we've
What was
had
that
great-
dollar amount? I forget.
I'm not 100% sure what the dollar amount is. I can get that back to you.
Yeah, I think it was almost 10 million or so.
Yeah.
Hadn't been done in 40 years. There's something that's I got about 6 lakes in my district. Of course, it's working class folks, middle class, and some low-income residents that are homeowners that live on those lakes. And what I've seen, the city does a phenomenal job on the vegetation and the growth around those lakes. But there's a few of the lakes that's owned, I think, by the state. And what we're finding is that they don't come and clear that vegetation. We're getting the blue blooms and then vegetation that is 6 and 7 feet high. I've called, how do I connect with them to come and clean those lakes, because it's unaffordable for some of those seniors that's been there, Mayor, almost 40, 50 years to clean those lakes. How can we do a better job with getting the state to come and do some cleanup?
First is contact the county to see,
Oh, it's the
if
county.
they have, necessarily jurisdiction over it.
Yes, the
but
state, I've done that.
Yeah, the second
State
thing is I can talk to you specifically about
Okay.
those lakes and see if we can reach out to somebody and address some of that.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then I guess the next to last question, which is not a question, but this increase, you're going to need more employees, so this will be a job creation component too, or will it?
I don't know how many positions specifically we can address out of this. We do have some positions that are, we always have some turnover specifically to some of these positions. We are going to probably need to increase, some aspect, especially when we deal with the capital improvement side of this, and that is where you have the highest, some of these capital improvement projects are rather large, especially what we're dealing with right now. And so with that advent will be some construction inspectors or construction managers or project managers or, engineers along that way. And so we will probably add some, but I don't know breakdown specifically.
Oh, you made a valid point there. So there'll be a lot of great contract opportunities
Yes,
for small
absolutely.
businesses.
Yes, for construction dollars, for some of the CIPs, we're always looking for good partners to partner with, to good contractors to build some of this infrastructure.
And I guess my last component, before we vote on the increase, which I'm in full support of because it's much needed, is there opportunity similar to going around to each district one time just to talk with the residents about the potential increase, so we don't just vote for it one day at the dais
Yeah,
and
no.
they're not informed?
That's a great question. So there's a process here, and we have to advertise this to every ratepayer. So this is something that will be in the newspaper too, about how they advertisement. And there are several steps. We need to have a couple hearings, to talk about this. So this is not just going to be hey, one thing, we're done. There's going to be opportunities for us to reach out.
And what I've noticed, I know we got the newspaper, but most folks don't get the newspaper anymore. It's usually online, and if it is in a store, it's $4 per paper. So we might miss a few, especially in some of our disadvantaged neighborhoods that don't have proper internet access. So I would request that we do one listening session in my district prior to the increase, so folks won't say it. And sometimes they don't open their mail because it's a bill. I noticed that too. So.
Corey, is this one we put in the OUC mailer?
Yes.
As well?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe. Roy, is that correct? This is mailer? Yeah.
Oh,
just tax
so they
roll.
would
Sorry.
just get
That's
it.
right. It is tax roll.
Once that year, Mayor. So-
Okay. Corey, if you do go out to different districts, you might figure out what capital improvement projects are in
Yeah.
each of the districts.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, sir. And that's all I have.
Commissioner Stewart, then Commissioner Gray.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. I was going to recommend the same thing, is that we can't go and talk to the community without knowing what their individual benefit will be to them. That's one of the challenges, and so we accomplish that task. A couple of quick questions. One is just a matter of process. If I can get a copy of the PowerPoint, so we have that, that'd be just great. I can
Absolutely.
put that on my pad, and I can keep it that way. The greatest number of complaints I get outside of post-storm, and there's 3 or 4 areas, all of us have those in our community, is how do we addressing stormwater in traditional neighborhoods that are having rebuilding? And the idea is that as Jim Hunt used to teach me a long time ago, that water got to get to the streets somehow and we'll take care of it. But I feel like there's kind of a little bit of a disconnect, especially in the older neighborhoods, where, as the community would say, you're bringing in McMansions, you're bringing in a pool. We don't have an issue. I mean, the pool really is an impervious surface, although it does collect water for where it is. And then next thing you know is the next door neighbors. You've got to build up the property. Next door neighbors now are complaining because the runoff is going into their backyard. Now, I know technically that may not be the case in every case, but that's the complaint. So it requires a great deal of energy from us to kind of get ahead of that. I see that similar to a little bit about what Commissioner Hill was saying. I see that there, in the process, we ought to get better at that, and that may be a personnel issue to be able to respond to the permits and put some more energy into enforcement of that. I just, I know that in my neighborhood, before I moved, in my neighborhood, we were literally adjacent to Orange County. And the Orange County says they have the same type of requirements that we have, but they don't enforce them as much as we do. So now I've got a whole row of guys backing up to Orange County, and their entire backyard now is flooded because the house across the fence now is 3 feet higher than what the previous guy was there. Yeah. That's, I think we need to look at as we're moving forward. How are we going to enforce? How are we going to make these things stricter so that we don't have these traditional neighborhood issues in rebuilding? Let me congratulate you on new development that comes in. We don't have these issues in Baldwin Park. I don't think we have the same issues in Lake Nona. And where we have kind of a blank slate, I think we do a really, really good job about that. Where we have a challenge is in traditional neighborhoods. And so I think also when you begin to look at the neighborhoods, I think you're right. You have a neighborhood that's got an 8-inch pipe. It needs a 36-inch pipe. And how do you make that happen? What are the other fixes in the meantime that can make that happen? And those are almost invariably in older traditional neighborhoods. I know we have a lot of complaint in Rosemont. I don't think it's a big a deal in Rosemont because it's a newer standard that's a 30-year-old standard or a 40-year-old standard. Now we have newer standards. And so we're getting better at what we do. We just got to figure out how do you retrofit these 80-year, 90-year-old neighborhoods to accomplish that task. Yeah. And again, it gets exasperated because these 90-year-old neighborhoods are now having McMansions built on them and the standards aren't being taken to the road. So it's a real challenge. And I think the mayor is right. We look at the capital projects, even if it's a little bit broader stroke, that we plan on spending X amount of dollars in College Park and X amount of dollars at Thornton Park and X amount of dollars, I think you would begin to see it's important.
Okay.
And then last is Commissioner Sheen is right on lake quality. We always need to do a better job of measuring the quality of the lakes. It's the otter question's a different question because they went away and then they came back. But the idea really is that there's an education component to our community. They need to understand why these are important. I mean, literally almost every lake in Orlando is a retention pond.
Yes.
Since it is, we have to figure out how do we take care of the quality of the water in that, because it also ends up being fishing and whatever else may go on in that lake. Yeah. So I'd like to figure out somewhere along the line that some investment we have into greater lake monitoring. Mm-hmm. I think there's resources to fix a lot of the lakes, but I think we haven't done an optimum job. We've done a good job, but an optimum job in measuring the lake and then communicating back to the community what the lake quality is. Every time we have a meeting like that, it feels like when we're talking to the neighborhood, we're starting with Education 101, and here's here's how the measurement of lake quality, and here's this, and you feel like you're kind of going through the whole steps all over again. Yeah. I think we have a kind of continuing education in that. I think it would work out. I learned more about lake quality between Jim Hunt and a couple of people, and we had a problem at Lake Highland. All of a sudden, next thing you know, I become a lake expert. I don't want to be a lake expert. But I want to get people to lake experts that we have, and I think we do a really good job from that. We just need more people to help accomplish that task.
Yeah, and education is a quintessential part of what we do. And to your point, and we've all seen this, water quality is of the highest importance and utmost importance. And sometimes you're right, you feel like you have to educate everybody. Here's why it's important to not blow the leaves in the gutter or whatever. And so we do a good job, in my opinion, of education. We need to do a better job, right? It's that kind of higher quality, and that requires going out and talking more. And so we're gonna look at that.
And back to Commissioner Hill's point, that I think is the key in terms of trying to do something per district. Yeah. It's not just to tell people about how we want to spend the stormwater. It really is to have them understand how important the stormwater care is and how important it is to the quality of life in our entire community, even if they don't live on a lake, how important it is to the entire quality of life.
Yep.
So, all right. And anyway, and I love the Public Works guys, and they are, when you go back and ask all the questions, people like to flush their toilets. They like to make sure their house isn't I mean, almost to the limit of public safety.
Yeah.
And they don't realize how important it is until a hurricane comes through, and all of a sudden they go, "Oh gosh, I didn't realize the city did that." So, thank you very much, Corey. Thank you for your leadership.
I think we have an excellent team. I'm really proud of the work we do. It's just that thing is we want to get to the next level, right? We want to get to the point where we're, I've told several people this. If we make this a place where everybody wants to be, everybody wants to work, then we don't have a problem. Right, that's where we want to get to. So
thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate that.
Commissioner Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. Corey, thanks for this. I would like to go back to the chart on page 12, which is your projected revenue requirements. Educate me. It looks like, I'll let you get there first.
Yes.
This one?
That one?
Yeah, thank you. It appears that the bump from roughly 25 mil to up to 60 is really not for operating expenses as much as it is for capital replacement or improvement. Is that fair?
That's fair, yes.
Okay. So here's one potential concern I guess I have with the pricing. To Commissioner Stewart's point, and you and I have talked about this, new requirements, standards for new development, primarily Baldwin Park, Southeast, have served us well. I mean, during the hurricane, with the exception of some spots in Vista Lakes, we really didn't have much flooding. So the good news is our improved standards, our higher standards are working, but they're more expensive to install.
Yes.
So if I'm a landowner / developer in one of the new areas growing, you're saying to me, city, you got to live to a higher standard, which costs more because it takes more land for stormwater, higher pipes, et cetera, et cetera. So you're doing it the right way, you're not causing problems, but yet I want you to pay your fair share to help replace stuff that you had nothing to do with in the more established parts of the city. So I'm not suggesting we don't need to address those, we do. Sure. But is that equitable, and can we adjust for those who are already doing it to higher standards, which by definition cost more?
Yeah, that's a good question. And when the discounts that were associated, I was talking with a little bit, there are discounts built into the rates, right? Especially when you deal with it. If you have a neighborhood that has, or if a commercial property that has its own stormwater management system, they're going to get a discount because they're helping, with this situation. And so we have to take that into account too. When we look at the rate and the rate structure and how much the actual charge is. That's the second step to what we want to look at, is to see and understand that in totality of how that affects the rate payer, right? So there is that's a good question. We'll take it back and we'll do a little bit of research on that too to see.
So to be determined.
Yeah. Okay. But there is a second step in there that we have to go through in this process, right? And that's why we're keeping the discounts the way they are right now, Commissioner.
Right.
We don't want to affect both of these things at one time without understanding, the discount very well before.
And just for my own education, how do these discounts work? Is there a formula?
That's what
is it subjective?
There is roughly a formula in the OSWIM manual that says here's what it is. I believe it's in Roy, is it in the codes that we deal with?
I don't think it's in the code, but it's been adopted by council.
Okay.
As a policy.
Yeah, so it is policy, yeah.
We are going to ask the consultant to do another
Yep.
analysis of the discount methodology so that it's clearer,
Mhm.
so that people can look at
Yep.
it and see exactly what, and that'll come in 3 years?
Probably, yeah, probably 3 years from
Okay,
now, where we're
good.
looking at. And that's the thing, is we don't understand, it's very complex when you go through there and try to understand how that works, kind of fleshes out. And so I think there were some questions about, we need to make it a little bit easier so you could look at it and say, hey, this makes sense in this aspect. So,
Okay, so if we continue those discounts, I mean, the burden is huge, by your own definition, 35 million.
yeah.
So if we continue those discounts, can the existing kind of, let's call it older infrastructure, do those ratepayers have the ability to handle that? In other words, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but if you're giving a discount to those that are doing new development, okay, then you're putting a bigger burden on those existing landowners, taxpayers. Can they do that in a reasonable fashion?
Well, it's not necessarily all in one, this is spread out through everything. And I think we have to go in and see who's getting a discount, right? Because it's not just new development that's getting discount. There are discounts all over the place, right? So we have to figure out where the discount came from, who's getting it, how it's associated, how it's assessed. That's the second step. If you're asking, I think I understand the question right, is it's both traditional neighborhood or older neighborhood if they have a managed system, or a newer neighborhood if they have a managed system, or newer commercial property or older commercial property. If they have managed systems, right, they're getting a discount. So it's spread out throughout the whole throughout the whole system, if you will, for that aspect already.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, back to Commissioner Sheehan, Commissioner Hill, and Commissioner Burns.
Thanks, Mark. Just had a couple follow-ups, and I was kind of intrigued listening to Commissioner Stewart. The same thing I have. Why are they putting all this fill in when they need to do? That might be more of a planning question. But why are they putting all this fill in? Do they just want to be higher than everybody else? I mean, it seems kind of strange that they would be putting all this fill. But I've noticed the same thing Commissioner Stewart's noticed. When they build a new McMansion, then they have to seem to build it up, and then that helps to exacerbate the problems with the drainage. So I'm wondering why are they putting that fill in? They just want to be higher than everybody else?
I don't think that's it. I'd have to check and see specifically what
it
is.
seems,
Now, I know when there is a site that's come in for review, I know that the engineering looks at it and says, hey, it goes all back to the impervious area, how much additional impervious area you have, and you have to manage that stormwater on your site for that additional impervious area. So sometimes they build it up to build a swale in the back, or a small retention area, bioswale, what they call bioswale in the back, so they can keep some more of that water on their site. I don't know specifically, Commissioner. I would have to go and see why that is.
It's just something to consider, because I've noticed the same thing Commissioner Stewart has noticed.
I'll look at it and see.
That when we
Does it have anything to do with the water table and especially like in a pool?
I'm not sure. It possibly could, but that would be speculation.
I just noticed that as the water table has gotten higher, we've seen a lot of those. So I'm sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
No, it's okay, because it's a definite concern. And the other thing that God, I just wish we could outlaw the darn things. It says leaf blowers with commercial lawn people. They're constantly blowing leaves into the storm drains. It's impossible to police, basically, because you don't have enough people to be able to make sure they're doing the right thing. And as someone who lives between two commercial properties, they just blow it onto my house, and I'm constantly bagging leaves for the entire neighborhood. But I just wish we could do something about, pick up a broom, for God's sake, pick that stuff up. Leaf blowers just make it somebody else's problem. So I know Winter Park is doing something, trying to get people to turn in their leaf blowers, but I hate those things. They're noisy. They don't pick up the leaves. They just make it someone else's problem. And I just think they're the rudest thing. They're the rudest invention ever. So I don't know if there's anything we can do, but they're awful.
We try to do as much education as possible. We say bag, don't blow.
Yeah, they don't, but these commercial guys, they do not bag. When you see them going through these neighborhoods, there are no bags leaving with these little trailers. They are not bagging it. They're just blowing it right into the storm system. Thanks, Mayor.
Commissioner Hill, then Commissioner Burns.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just thinking, after hearing Commissioner Sheehan, and we all know this, and Stewart, and yourself, Corey, talking about one of our #1 focuses is water quality. And as you know, we've had to shut down quite a few lakes over in District 5 due to blue algae, and many of the residents panicked because it was like, what is blue algae? And everybody was afraid. So if we do decide to do the listening tours in each district, I think that subject matter would be very important to express to them why this is needed so that, we can have quality water there. But I know in my area, our water isn't usually used much for recreation, but more so as revenue and for eating. There's a lot of fishing that goes on to put food on the table, from youth to seniors, and it's essential. So I think that will really help them a lot and stop some of the chaos when we say we have to shut the lakes down due to blue algae, to give them a better understanding why this is a must.
Yeah.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Commissioner Burns.
All right, thank you, Mayor. And Corey, thank you for you and your team for everything that you do. I'm definitely supportive of what was presented. I did want to say thank you for, we would get a lot of calls for potholes, and I appreciate the how we're approaching those potholes and not just filling the potholes, but truly looking at the underground infrastructure. So I think that has been good. So I had a question in reference to I know that the county received some CDBG disaster relief funding, and I was wondering how would those funds impact and help move us forward in some of these CIP projects that we're looking for? And then my other question is, will any projects be delayed until this rate increase? Can you just kind of talk to the continuous flow of keeping these projects on?
Sure. Well, first of all, the second question, our capital projects go as we have the money to fund them, right? So if there's no money, we have to either find the money, get a grant for the money, assess some of that situation. So, I'm not going to say no, but there could be some delays in projects if that doesn't happen. That's just, naturally what we have to kind of deal with as we go on. As far as the CDBG DR monies at the county, we did put a couple projects on that list. I can get back to you about specifically what those are, but of course we want to see, can those help our capital improvement projects, especially, like I said, on some of the larger projects that we look at, to see, hey, can we use some of this money to help us in those situations? I know there were some stringent, pretty specific requirements about that CDBG DR monies, about where they could be used, and they had some restrictions on them. So we looked at that, and we placed the best possible ones on that project that we are on the list that we can do, in hopes that we could fund those projects. So
have we received any feedback from the county on
approving
those projects? Or
I can check and see where we're at in the process on there, but I believe the county just looked at that list or returned the list in, if I'm not mistaken, a few weeks ago. So I'll check and see where they're at in the process.
And then I'll just second what my fellow commissioners has mentioned about kind of the educating and what does this increase mean for me, in my community, because I do believe with Ian, it was highlighted, some of the some of the issues. So again, in any way my office can help with that, we're available.
Well, we appreciate your support, and we appreciate all your support. All y'all's support, really. We couldn't do this without you. We appreciate that. And we thank you for the accolades, of course, that y'all give us and continue to give us, and I appreciate that. And know that we work hard, and we want to continue working hard regardless, for y'all and for the city. Thank you.
Okay, Corey, thank you for the presentation, and also just while I have you here, I'm going to talk more about this at 2 o'clock, but we had a phenomenal weekend in Orlando this week, and especially the highlight being the marathon that showcased Orlando internationally, and certainly I got text messages from mayors all over the country saying, way to go, but thank you to Transportation and Public Works for making our streets and everything around our streets look so good, to the runners and everybody that visited and everybody that watched us on TV. So good work, Transportation and Public Works.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll stand adjourned as to our workshop.